Hey guys, what's going on? It is me, Josh, and I'm so excited to share with you the one thing that has revolutionized my investing career, and that is the 4 pillars of motivation. I'm excited to share it with you today. So let me dive in really quick. We're going to go over a brief training video here really quick on exactly what the 4 pillars of motivation is and how I use it inside my business. And I want to first start off by telling you it has absolutely revolutionized the way that I deal with direct to market seller leads. The 4 pillars of motivation is exactly how we use in our business, is the conversation that we have in our business to talk with hundreds of sellers per month. And in 6 minutes or less, we can gauge exactly how motivated each and every seller is, because one of the biggest keys to real estate investing in 2022 is spending a lot more time with the right sellers, the motivated sellers, and spending a lot less time with the tire kickers. Now, if you're a newer investor, this is one of the harder skills to learn. How do I know which sellers are motivated? So this is the exact script that I'm going to show you. This is exactly how you're going to identify the super motivated sellers. Here we go. Let me pull this screen down to the bottom. So you should have gotten this. You should get this download, the 4 pillar script. This is the exact one that we use in our business. And in our business, we've done around 400 off-market deals direct to seller in the last 3 years. And this is the catalyst. This is the piece that has made it really, really easy to judge motivation. So after we get someone on the phone, you're probably wondering, how do I find out how motivated this person is without asking them, how motivated are you? Okay. So here's the 4 pillars that we have to know. The 4 pillars are: 1, timeline; 2, why; 3, property condition; and 4, dollar signs. So let's start off with 1. The timeline. The exact question that I ask goes just like this. Mr. Seller, if we can agree on a fair price and all the other important details, when would you ideally like to finalize a sale? That's the first pillar. And I'm going to go into the answers and how to interpret these in just a second. But let me go through all 4 really quick. So number 1 is timeline. Number 2 is why. Mr. Seller, if you did decide to sell the property to us or anyone else right now, why would you? Number 3, property condition. Mr. Seller, in terms of condition, if you rated the property from 0 to 10, where 0 is horrible and 10 is like a magazine cover, how would you rate it? And then number 4, dollar signs. Mr. Seller, I guess you don't happen to know what you owe on the property, do you? Mr. Seller, considering we take care of all the closing costs and make it super easy, do you know what a fair price might be as is, or maybe do you understand what the neighbors are selling for? So there it is, guys. There's the 4 pillars of motivation. These are the 4 key questions that you need to ask any seller when evaluating a new lead. Now, the 4 questions come in handy to evaluate their motivation, but what really helps are their answers, of course. So let me give you a really quick tip. And by the way, I go into all this. We have a 2-day marketing masterclass where I talk about the 4 pillars of motivation for about an hour. And I go super, super deep because it's that important. We're going to go over this in just maybe another 5 minutes or so. But I do this in a 2-day class, and I say that because you might be interested. But these are the basics. This is what you need to know to really start talking to sellers effectively. Okay, so we've gone over the 4 questions here, the 4 pillars. Now, the super important part is interpreting their answers, because the answers they give back to you is like an algorithm. It's like an algorithm for their motivation. And let me explain to you what I mean. So here's a slide deck of what we use for the marketing masterclass. And I'm going to show you 1 or 2 slides here really quick. But in terms of timeline, so Mr. Seller, if we can agree on a fair price and all the other important details, when would be ideal for you to finalize a sale on your property? Here are the 2 buckets of answers that we typically get. We're really only seeing 2 buckets of answers. The first is something like as soon as possible, today, yesterday, tomorrow, last week, next month. These are the answers that you want to hear. So if you ask about timeline and they give you one of these answers, you go, wow, this person's pretty motivated. On the other hand, if they say no real timeline, when I get my price, no rush, whenever, anytime, no timeline, then you start to think, oh, they're probably not motivated. Okay, so then that's the first answer. If we get those answers in the green right here, that's what you want to hear. In the red, those are the answers that really mean that we're not too motivated. Now let me show you again why. So if we go to why, Mr. Seller, if you did sell to us or anyone else, why would you? What we're looking for here is really an answer that backs up that timeline. So really what we're looking for is a story that says why they want to sell it as soon as possible or why they want to sell it this month or next month. If they don't have a timeline and they don't really have a why, then you know they're pretty much not motivated. Okay. Now, in terms of number 3, property condition. This we ask third because it's not as important as timeline and why. I'm asking these questions in the most important order that I think are most important. So timeline is really, it directly corresponds to their level of motivation. And then I'm looking for why, and I'm looking for a story that matches up to that timeline. Now, in terms of property condition, if you're a wholesaler, if you're looking to buy the property at a deep discount, you want a house that's beat up. You want a house where you can add value and come in and rehab and really add some value to the property. So if we're looking for a wholesale price, if we're looking for a deep discounted price at 30 or 50 cents on the dollar, then we're looking for properties that are probably going to be beat up. So if we ask them, Mr. Seller, in terms of condition, if you rated the property from 0 to 10, where 0 is horrible, 10 is like a magazine cover, what do you think you would rate it? The best answers are from 0 to 6. Okay. 0 to 6 are really where you're going to find your deep discounts because people are not going to want to put the money into it, and they're not going to want to rehab it. So 0 to 6 are really the zone where we find the best discounts. If they're talking 7 or 8, you might have another strategy, maybe a creative finance strategy. And then really if it's a 9 or 10, this is a retail lead. So you see how we can interpret some answers like this as we go along. So if they're talking in terms of property conditions, 0 to 6 is what we want to hear. 7 or 8 could swing one or the other ways. And then really 9 and 10, if they say, oh, it's perfect shape, 10 out of 10, you should be thinking automatically, oh, this is great for retail. Okay. And then let's go down to number 4, the dollar signs. So Mr. Seller, I guess you don't happen to know what you owe on the property, do you? So this is a presumptive question where we're saying, I guess you don't happen to know what you owe on it. And the great part is most sellers come back and they say, well, of course I know what I owe on it. I owe 92,000. Or of course I know what I owe on it. I owe 104,000. So when you phrase the question this way, I guess you don't happen to know how much you owe on the property, do you? That's a very good way to get the answer out of them. On the other hand, if you ask them, Mr. Seller, what do you owe on the property? You're only going to get a great answer out of them maybe 10 to 20% of the time because they're going to be very guarded. So the way that we ask this question, I guess you don't happen to know how much you own the property, do you? That presumptive no is very important to getting the right answer out of them. And then last, Mr. Seller, do you happen to know what a fair price might be? Or maybe do you understand what the neighbors are selling for? So this is a very good question, and we ask it last because really the price that they're asking is the least important question to me. We really want to get out on this appointment, guys. We want to get out on this appointment. We want to talk more about their why. We want to dive into the pain. We want to talk about the motivation, and then we want to talk about how we can solve that problem. If you're talking price right up front, you're going to lose a lot of deals. You're going to lose a lot of leads because if you're waiting to hear a 50% discount price come out of their mouth up front, man, you might as well be trying to find a Ferrari for $1,000 out there. So we asked this price question last, and it's really the least important. But again, do you happen to know what a fair price might be? Or maybe do you understand what the neighbors are selling for? Then they're going to come out and they're going to say, well, maybe I could get 100. I hope to get 100. And guys, really the hardest answer that we get here is when someone answers right back right away and they say, no, I have no clue. Because over time, I've learned that when someone says, I have no clue, they actually know exactly what they want. They just don't want to reveal their hand first. So guys, these are the 4 pillars of motivation. These are the most important questions that you could ask any seller to qualify a lead and find out who is super motivated. The real trick to the 4 pillars is A, asking the questions the same way every time. B, active listening. So memorize the questions and don't sound like a robot when you're saying them so that when you're listening to the answers come back in, you can really evaluate it. And then C, when you put all of their answers together, this becomes an algorithm for their motivation. So if you take together all of their answers, you can determine how motivated they are. It's going to take practice, no doubt about it. This video is not going to unlock it for you and your business. But these are the exact questions that we ask the 4 pillars of motivation to uncover the most motivated sellers in our business. And we've done that to buy about 400 houses in the last 3 years. So I know if it's worked for us, it's going to work for you guys too. All right, guys, I hope that was super helpful for you. Download the 4 pillar script, and maybe I'll see you at our training. Take care.